Welcome to an unboxing that I've actually wanted to do for quite a while, and I've received a number of requests to do. Now, I know that I unboxed the FT03 Mini a long time ago, and I promised at the time of unboxing it that I would do an ITX build guide in that case, and it took like months to get it done, but I would like to remind you guys that I eventually did get it done. So when I'm committing now to do a micro ATX build guide in the SG09, I don't know how soon it'll get done, but it will get done at some point. So there you go. I am committing that to you. Silverstone has to be one of the most underappreciated case manufacturers in a lot of ways. So number one is you guys have no idea what it costs in terms of the tooling and design costs to bring a new case to market. It is a boatload of money. And Silverstone releases new case designs all the time, trying to constantly innovate and constantly do things differently. They also do a lot of stuff that only has niche appeal, where they'll be like, okay, let's build like the craziest, smallest ITX enclosure that can hold a ball and graphics card like they did with the FT03 Mini, and also cools exceptionally well like they did with the FT03 Mini. Or they'll take something and be like, oh, let's turn like the motherboard on its side 90 degrees. And so they do like this crazy stuff, and they take gambles because it costs them, even if they never actually sell a case, it still costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring that case to market, which has nothing to do with even so let's say even they sell 100 cases or 1,000 cases, like the margin doesn't justify the development cost in a lot of cases unless it really takes off. So they take gambles, they bring things to market, and I think we have to appreciate that because they do unique stuff. So there's your sort of history lesson on Silverstone and what they do. And this, folks, is the SG09, which is intended to be a super small, super awesome airflow micro ATX case. So you can see airflow is the name of the game with this guy. We've got huge vents on the front, huge vents on the side, all down the bottom here, all up the top here, huge vent on the top. These look like very, very large fan holes. Once we get it opened up, we'll have a better idea what's going on, and a 120 at the back. So this is like an air cooling box. So let's have a look at what Silverstone has to say for themselves, and then we'll move on to the case itself. So dual speed fan switch on the rear pane, 120mm fan included, independent hard drive and SSD compartment behind the motherboard tray, love it. Supports full-size CPU coolers up to 165 mils. Air penetrator AP181 fan is included. Very nice, very good fan. Slim optical drive bay is included right up at the top. Detachable front power supply fan filter, so your power supply goes right in the front. Full-size ATX power supply is supported. Dedicated triple GPU fan slots with removable filter, and 4 expansion slots accommodate top-end graphics cards up to 13.3 inches long, which is about as long as they get these days, guys. Full graphics card, ample fan slot, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeah, let's move on. All right, the case itself. So that is the front. That is your power supply intake. So I have a feeling we're gonna find a very, very unique internal layout here when I go get my screwdriver and I can take off the thumb screws on the back. So exterior first. The front is plastic, so that is a plastic bezel. However, they're using that brushed plastic that I happen to really like. So it's got kind of like a brushed feel to it. The place where it's missing that finish is up here on that power supply intake, as well as here where the slim slot loading optical drive goes. So that's a little bit disappointing, but it's not the end of the world. It doesn't look too bad. I'd love it if it was a metal front, but this would be very expensive to do out of metal. Silverstone logo here, power and reset buttons on the left and the right, 2 USB 3 front ports, as well as front headphones and front microphone. I already kind of showed this, but it's okay. So this is probably something to do with the motherboard tray back-mounted SSD mount. So you can see how much room there is behind the motherboard tray. So I'm expecting to find pretty good cable management in there. This up here looks like it has a little like handle here. So you can, yeah, there you go. You can get that, whoopsie daisies, get that out of there. So it was an included 180mm air penetrator, if I recall correctly. Yep, that's a 180mm air penetrator that's blowing air down onto the CPU area as well as down onto the back of the graphics card where it'll be exhausted this way. So they're going for a little bit of a different airflow layout with this case. Go ahead and snap that back into place. Then on this side, there's that triple fan thing that they set up. So it looks like a 120 and dual 80s that's going to be dedicated to cooling the graphics card, as well as more ventilation here. So these were a little bit tight from the factory, but loosening them with a screwdriver has got that taken care of. And this is something that I haven't really seen before. It looks like we can remove pretty much every panel except for a little bit down here to almost completely open up the case for installation. So you know what, let's just see if there's any documentation. I mean, with the I think it was the GD08 as well as the FT03 Mini, a couple Silverstone cases I've looked at recently, they specifically said in the instructions, this is a unique case. Don't even bother trying to assemble your system in here without some help. So yeah, something, carefully prepared by, yeah. And they do such good manuals. So they're like, yep, here's all the different things. Here's a little addendum. This is how you disassemble it, blown up view of it, how it goes back together. So 80 or 92 mil fans on the side there. Reset button, 180 mil fan. Okay, I'll be back in a moment. Baby's crying. Okay, so I removed all the screws from the back, but I realized there's actually one more that you have to remove here to get the top cover off. So we were in the middle of figuring out how the whole thing comes apart. So this is sort of one big U-shaped piece that all comes off. And I see, much like the FT03, this case could present some challenges even for experienced builders because of the unique way that it all fits together. So this guy is done with two separate screws, so you can either take it off or not take it off. It's totally up to you. And by two separate screws, what I meant to say was three separate screws, because there's one more on the bottom here. There we go. So let's take those off. And then so we can either remove those or not remove them. And we are going to do that just for the sake of getting this going here. So you can do either a 120, and you can see there's an air penetrator included, a 120 and two 80s or 92s, or you can do 380s or 392s. It's totally up to you. I hope that I'm correct about that and I'm totally wrong. So it's a 120 and 120, blah, 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 backwards compatible with 92, and then 280/90. Yeah, it claims to be, yeah, okay, oh, there they are. I see the holes, but it doesn't do 80s. So you can do 92, 92, 92, or 120, 92, 92, 120, 80, 80. And this case uses extremely fine fan filters. So they're almost more like a nylon than an actual plastic. You can see there's some shiftiness to them here. So these should be doing a really good job of sorry, it's just going to check the direction there. These should do a really good job of filtering even very fine particles out of the air that goes into your case, which is important for that concept of positive air pressure. So you can see the way they've configured these fans. This guy's an intake. This big guy up here, the big 180 millimeter, is also... Okay, baby, is also an intake, and then the only exhaust is this 120 at the back, as well as the power supply itself. So that means you're going to have overall positive airflow combined with filtered intakes. You should have a very dust-free internal environment. Very solid construction on this guy overall. Like you can see, there's no flex to the materials, given that there's not a whole lot to speak of here. So it's quite a thick steel. All the corners are rounded like that, so you're not going to risk cutting yourself or anything. I remember when I used to work with cheap cases all the time, I always used to have the cuts just all over my hands, and people would ask me what's going on, and I'd be like, no, I'm fine, don't worry. On the back, we've got 2x2, so 4 total 2.5-inch drive mounts. Then we have some additional optional accessories, which I'm just going to have to go ahead and cheat and look at the manual, and I'll be back in a minute. As I said before, the guide included is so detailed, it goes through and gives you, it gives you great little tips. These are the kinds of things you never find in installation guides. It has a dedicated step called, we recommend deciding whether or not to install the right side fan now. And then there's another one that's like awesome as well, because it basically just says, this is the point where you need to start thinking about cable routing before you keep going. Make sure you're doing things tidily. I don't remember where it is. Anyway, on the back, you mount two 3.5-inch drives here, and you can see they've given ample thought See right there? Little bit of airflow is coming right over the hard drives so that they're going to be positioned in such a way that they're going to get cooling. And then the bottoms of the hard drives have a little bit of space down here where you can route the wires that you need around here. These guys right here hold those 4 2.5 inch. And again, it doesn't really matter that much whether you have that much airflow over here. So I personally I really like this design. It's great. So you can put that 80 mil fan here. That is not a filtered intake, however. It's, yeah, is not. So that's probably one that I wouldn't really recommend using. Let it be like a passive exhaust, or install an exhaust fan there as another option. So it gives you instructions for removing the power supply cage itself. So you can see the way the power supply is going to be positioned. We'll have this plug right here, which is a right angle plug, plugged into the back of the power supply. It'll intake at the front of the case, and then it'll exhaust out the side of the case right there. So it'll come right out the side, and none of that air is ever going to affect the cooling of the internal components. Your slot low DVD drive goes up here, and guys, remember we are going to be doing a build guide in this case, so don't worry if you're missing any of these steps. Now that it's down to the bare skeleton, you can see our internal connectors. So we've got an internal USB 3 as well as all your usual front panel connectors, including front audio. We've got fan connectors for the included fans, and you can also see here just how much space there is. They also give you fantastic tips. Like, a lot of people ask me this, and the answer I usually give is, well, it depends on your case. They say, oh, I have a case fan over my graphics card area. Should I use it as an exhaust or as an intake? Silverstone gives you examples of a variety of different fan configurations that you can find on graphics cards, which hopefully I will component size limitations. They cover all of that, as well as, here we go, more component size limitations, types of cables that are optimal. So they recommend using straight cables. They show you types of CPU coolers that are recommended. There you go. So they say, okay, this is how you do it. This kind or this kind, this is how you do it. And they let you sort of make your own best judgment that way. They also tell you, don't use two cards in SLI or Crossfire that are sandwiched too close together. So the way that they recommend is, say for example, you got a GTX 590, which is going to exhaust some out the back and out here. So you'd want to use a couple here as an intake and then this one as an exhaust, and let the passive exhaust go out the back of the I/O for that side. Motherboard tray is fairly solid, about what I'd expect from Silverstone. And I think that pretty much covers it. So the idea was for them to do a micro ATX case, which is capable of an SLI or Crossfire configuration within, I think they set out a design spec for themselves of 23 liters total internal capacity. Remember guys, this case is probably smaller internally than a BitPhoenix Prodigy and actually accommodates a pretty high-end configuration. Now, it doesn't have those same liquid cooling options available, but you would still be able to get away with a thick 120 millimeter radiator here, and with some more creativity, you could probably do like an 80 mil rad there, and who knows, you could even maybe ceiling mount something if you put it sort of over here on the side and figured out a way to mount it. So there's a lot of room in here for all kinds of cool stuff. Thank you for checking out my unboxing and first look at the SG09 from Silverstone. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and I'm going to have a hard time putting this back together, and other computer videos. I think there's one more thing I haven't showed you that I would like to show you before we do wrap things up. Here's at the back, how do you actually connect your power supply via the outside? It goes right there. So that's that pass-through that I showed you that connects to the internal power supply, which goes here, and then you can see from the front. So you better make sure you pick a power supply that's not, like gray. And I actually did end up forgetting a couple things, guys. So they even include things like a little duct if you want to use a 25 millimeter thick fan on the side. So yeah, you can bridge the gap so that it gets a little bit closer to your GPU, delivers the air right to it. Includes rubber feet for the bottom. So those are super, super grippy, which is good. All your included screws. Can't believe I didn't cover this when I did the actual unboxing. USB 3 to USB 2 adapter if your motherboard doesn't have front USB 3. Some cable ties. This is cool. So single Molex to 3 3-pins for those 3 fans right there. As well as, oh neat, it's a bracket for converting from 180 to 140 millimeter. And this is for the slim optical. Okay, now don't forget to subscribe. Oh yeah, and these. These are evidently for adhesive spacers for 9.5-inch slim optical drive installation. So you get 4 of them.